Hi, I'm George with NS345. Today I want to show you how I manage my headphone mixes using the Clarett 8PreX and Focusrite control. For this demonstration, I'm going to use Pro Tools. I have a drum session that I recently recorded using the Clarett 8PreX and Octopre MK2 Dynamic. This is what it sounds like. This is part of a song that I'm producing for a friend. I'm going to bring in a singer and a few musicians. So managing headphone mixes is going to be really important. Now, I've set an initial balance for my faders, and I'm really happy with what it sounds like. Once I start recording, I want to leave my faders right where they are, especially when I'm hearing the playback through my monitors. I don't want to have to reset them every time because I don't have separate headphone mixes. Let me show you how I set up headphone or cue mixes during a recording session. Before I do that, let's go back to the Focusrite control software. This is the application that's used alongside the Clarett 8PreX. I want to clarify a couple of things. The outputs 1 and 2 correspond to my physical speakers or my studio monitors. These are really important here. On the output section, line outputs 7, 8, 9, and 10 correspond with the headphone amps that are located in front of your Clarett interface. As you can see, here is headphone amp 1 and 2. 7 and 8 correspond to headphone amp 1. 9 and 10 correspond to headphone amp 2. Line output 7, 8 correspond with line output 7, 8 on the back of the interface. The same goes for 9, 10. It corresponds with 9, 10 on the back of the interface. Again, 7, 8, headphone amp 1, line output 7, 8, 9, 10, headphone amp 2, line output 9, 10. Now that we know this, let's go back to Pro Tools. What I want to do in Pro Tools is I want to set up my routing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of the tracks that I have available. Now I'm going to create a send, and I'm going to call that cue guitar. So I'm going to hold Shift Control Option, and that's going to give me the option to create sends for all of the tracks that I have highlighted. Then I'm going to click on Send A, and I'm going to say New Track, and I'm going to call this cue guitar. I'm going to make sure it's a stereo auxiliary input. Create. I'm going to drag it to the right here. Next, I'm going to solo save it. If you notice, all of the cue guitar sends, all of these cue guitar sends are summed up to the cue guitar track or auxiliary track. And the input is also cue guitar. I can rename it at any time. Cue guitar. Okay, so these are sends, and the audio is being sent to your headphone amp mix. And let's add some notes. Headphone amp 1. Now we want to route this track to outputs 7 and 8. You guessed it, because output 7, 8 corresponds with headphone amp 1 and line outputs 7, 8. Before I move any further, let's go route it in the Focusrite control. Now, I'm in line outputs 7, 8, and I'm going to rename this cue guitar. And I'm going to leave it as a custom mix. You have various options. You have playbacks, hardware input, and custom mix. So let's leave it as a custom mix. And And here on the playback section, just going to do this again. I'm going to add playback 1, 2. So it's very simple. So now when I play something here, you can see that the audio is coming out through the Focusrite control. So if you grab your headphones and connect them to jack number 1 in front of your interface, you're going to hear the audio. However, you may not hear any audio at this point. I have my QMix set up going to output 7.8, and I'm going to hit play. Notice there's no audio coming out, and that's okay. So let's go back to Pro Tools. Now we're going to expand our sends, and we're going to do that by holding Command and clicking on the arrow here, and it's going to expand the sends. You can do the same thing by going to View and clicking on Expanded Sends, and then you can select the send that you want to expand, which is the same thing. The shortcut is Command Click. Okay, so the reason why we're not getting any audio into this track is because if you notice, these faders are down at the very bottom. So what we want to do now, we want to start with the mix I've already created. And I'm going to highlight all the way to the click. Then I'm going to go to Edit, and I'm going to say Copy to Send. Current value, volume. And let's go with pan. If you notice now, the faders were copied onto the sends here. Let's do that again. Let me reset these. The shortcut for doing this is Option Command H. So if you hit Option Command H, this happens, and you only want to copy your current value, your volume pan, and hit OK. All right, now if I hit play, you're going to see audio coming to here. All right, now I'm going to hit play, and I'm going to go to the Focusrite control. You also see audio coming out of the software.playback track 7.8. Now the physical output 7.8 is, let's change this to make it easier, headphone 1. All right, so where's the 1? Let's just go HP 1. All right, headphone app 1, so you know. All right, so now I have my headphones on, and I'm actually controlling the level that's going into my headphones. Because my faders are moving together because I have my drums grouped. And if I go to the attributes and you go to the globals, you can see that insert A or send A here, I have the level, mute, and pan selected, which means that all of those parameters are going to be available on the small send faders when the group is activated for the drums. I'm going to deactivate the group. And now you can see that I can move these faders individually. So if I hit play, now the singer can say, or the guitar player can say, hey, can you raise the kick? And I'll do that. Or can you give me a bit more snare? I can do that. Or can you lower the snare bottom? So you get the idea. Now, while I'm messing around with these faders with the sends, I don't have to worry about my mix being messed up. So if I record a track or I record a take, I can then go back and hear the levels as I originally had them set. There. Now, here's the other cool part. Now you're sitting in front of your computer likely. So let's just create another send just for you because you have, remember, 2 headphone amps available. So let's use number 2 for you. You can use 1 or 2, whatever your little heart desires. Now we're going to select the tracks in Pro Tools. all the way to the click. I'm going to hold Shift Control Option, and I'm going to click on Send B. I'm going to say New Track, Stereo Aux, and I'm going to call it Control Room. Let's assume that you have a control room. Okay, now you see that all of the faders came up, all of the sends were set up, and I'm going to move this here. So now you have, let's call it headphone amp 2. Okay, control room, all of the sends are routed into the input of the control room track. But now we're going to select the output, and we're going to make it outputs 9 and 10. Outputs 9 and 10 correspond with line outputs 9 and 10 in the Focusrite control. And they correspond with amp number 2 and line outs 9 and 10. Now, what we need to do here is make sure we have a custom mix, and let's rename this to headphone amp 2. Let's select a software playback track, and we're going to select, you guessed it, 910. Why? Because that's where we're sending the audio from Pro Tools, 910. Okay, now when I hit play in Pro Tools, I should be able to see signal here. Okay, the confusing thing about the Focusrite control is that these channels are global. Regardless of where you put them, they're going to show up in every line output. So, but that's okay. So now let's go to Pro Tools. I hit play, but there's no signal there. Why it's that? Because we haven't added any signal. So I'm going to click and hold Command. Now I see the faders. I'm going to select my tracks. Option, Command H. I have to select Send B. There you go. And if you noticed, I sent the copy to the cue for guitar, which means I've messed up the guitar player's mix. So if I do Command Z, there you go. It's back to normal. Now let's get the Option Command H shortcut up again. Make sure I have Send B selected. Hit OK. There's my levels. Here's the beautiful thing. I'm going to hit play. Even though the tracks are showing both on 7 and 8, you do have the option or the ability to mute the tracks. Because on 7 and 8, I only want this one playing back. So I want to mute playback 910. On 910, I have both playback channels, but I want to mute playback 7/8. Does that make sense? Let me repeat. Because the software playback tracks are global, which means they show up on every output section. When I select line output 7/8, both playback tracks are still showing. I don't want to hear both. This is a global setting, and I'm not sure why it's like that. And so I want to make sure 9 and 10 is muted, because on 7/8, which is headphone amp 1, I only want the mix that I have in Pro Tools to come out on 7/8. And on 910, I want 7/8 muted, because I only want 9 and 10 coming out, because that's my mix. Hopefully I didn't confuse you. So now I have a control room and a guitar cue. If you had a headphone amp and you connected your headphone amp in the following manner, let's say you connected cables on 7 and 8 to your headphone amp, which has 8 headphone inputs, meaning you can have 8 different pairs of headphones. And you also connected the cables out of 9 and 10 to another headphone amp, which also has 8 jacks for headphone connections. The beautiful thing about this is that while you're using those headphone amps and they're connected back here, you're still able to use these two in the front, which is very nice. So hopefully this gives you an idea on how to set up cue mixes for your recording session. Please let me know if you have any questions, and let me know if I've confused the heck out of you. All right, have a great day.